Cassie, welcome to Mastering You. Welcome to the podcast. So pleased to have you on board. How are you today? And happy lockdown.
Happy lockdown. Yeah, that's the new saying, isn't it? Yeah, I'm as good as I can be. I'm not going to be completely fake and say that things are incredible, because that wouldn't be true, but I'm as good as I can be.
Yeah, we had a brief chat before, and I'm just really, really thankful, grateful, and appreciative. I know you're having some personal issues at the moment, but I guess this is why that you're on this podcast for this topic, because even with what you're currently dealing with yourself, you are more than happy to still come on and talk about this topic that I've wanted to talk about for some time, really, since obviously lockdown kicked in, and that topic is resilience. I just think, whatever you think of resilience, whether you think of it as a capability or a skill or something that you were born with, I think we could all do with more of it right now, and we have done for some months now. And it was quite a few weeks ago now. I kind of thought, well, who better to talk to than Cassie, because of just knowing your story and obviously I've had my own challenges in life, but you've had one after the other to some extent, right? And I've always been so impressed, and I think everyone has been, which is why you've done so well with what you've done over these years is your resilience. And just before we popped on, I actually just went on to quickly just look at what the actual definition was of psychological resilience, and it kind of like definitely summed up why it was a good choice getting you on. So psychological resilience is the ability to mentally or emotionally cope with a crisis or to return to pre-crisis quickly. Resilience exists when the person uses mental processes and behaviors in promoting personal assets and protecting themselves from the potential negative effects of stressors. So in case you didn't know what resilience or psychological resilience is, that's what it is. And so, I mean, if you don't mind, Cassie, maybe we can get a little bit into the backstory about, why you're on and the stories of resilience that you've got to share. And also what I'd love to get into is finding out, like, for the listener of these podcasts, of this podcast, what are the key ingredients? What's the secret, if there is one, or how do we build more resilience and build that capability to manage ourselves better, to overcome many of these mental, emotional, or even physical challenges?
Yeah, okay. So I think with me, I constantly felt like I was making the wrong decisions in life, making the wrong choices in life. And what this led to is my career constantly breaking down and my relationships constantly breaking down. And I just found myself in a position where I felt like I was always making mistakes and always starting again and questioning, why me? What have I done wrong? Bit of that poor old me stuff thrown in. So I had quite a normal upbringing, I would say, like stable family. I wasn't excelling at school, but I was, little miss average, doing quite well at school. But my life collapsed for the first time when I was just 23, and I found that I'd woken up one morning and I had a house and a relationship and a baby and a dog, and things were quite good. And then I went to bed that evening and I had ended my relationship. I was at threat of losing my house, so I was now going to be a single parent with a 6-month-old baby. Like, what do you do in that situation? So very long story short, I went back to work like within a couple of weeks so I could keep my house, and got support from my family so they could help me out with childcare. And I just did whatever I needed to do to kind of keep that tunnel vision on and keep going in my life so we could keep our house. Fast forward 5 years or so, and I'd started a new relationship, I'd got engaged, I'd got married, everything again was looking quite good. But then that came to an end, and we'd been married for about 5 years at the time. That came to an end, so I found myself in another position where my life had collapsed. I was then a single parent with 2 children to 2 different dads, and I wasn't in a position to keep my house that time because I was then self-employed. So that was very challenging, and we had to sort of move and start again. And that was when I turned to meditation, which is one of my first coping mechanisms, if you like. And I'd never really looked at the power of the mind and how that can help to get your life back on track. Because I think a lot of the time we're looking for practical solutions. And that was the first time that I'd really looked into the power of the body and the mind and how that can help you to sort of stay focused and positive. And people were coming to my new house expecting to see me like sitting on the floor, rocking in a corner, maybe swigging from a bottle of vodka. I did that some nights, but just on a Friday. But my point is, joking aside, that I coped so much better than I should have, because I'd lost so much more the second time my life collapsed, but I had actually coped a lot better. And when I was in a position to look back and reflect on that period in my life, I saw just how powerful the meditations were, because I was visualizing the future that I wanted to see and just really taking responsibility for my own mental well-being instead of leaving it to chance. So that was like my first sort of turning point. And then a few years later, again, fast forward a couple of years, I'd met someone else. We were living together. Me and my children were very, settled in a new house. And then once again, that relationship ended very suddenly, like literally in a phone call. And we found ourselves in a position where we had lost another house and we needed to start our lives again. And people might be thinking, oh my goodness, like, how do you even cope when that happens for the third time? And you've got 2 children. I didn't have any money at this point. It wasn't like we just had, a nice bank, with savings and etc. We were we just didn't really have anything to start again. But it was like something kicked in that evening and just said to me, no, this is not happening. I have a quote that I say, and it's like, I will not allow the ghosts from my past to steal the happiness from my future. And a ghost isn't necessarily just a person. It's like a belief, or it's a negative emotional, I don't know, something from your past that you're just dragging around with you, like these negative beliefs and emotions that you're carrying around with you. And something just kicked in that evening. And I just decided that no, I was going to do everything that I could not to emotionally collapse and not go back to the girl that hated herself, not go back to the girl that didn't think that she was good enough, but to just take these small steps to do whatever I could to get my emotional well-being back on track, to then get my life back on track. And it started with like really simple things. I was like, okay, so I need to get fresh flowers, I need to get new pillows, and I think smoothies and aloe vera was the other 2. Like, it's a little bit of a blur now, but it was like, I need to get these things to kind of change the energy, just to change the energy and just to feel better.
And was it by starting these meditations, Cassie, that you sort of start, like that quote, for instance, like, to have the self-awareness to stop yourself and actually almost try and like reprogram your thoughts and what's talked about a lot is that the narrative in your mind, is that, would you say that having the time to just stop and from all of the chaos and the noise and practice that meditation that you'd never even thought about doing before, would you say that had some effect on actually doing that?
Yeah, it was massive. And I think because I had so spectacularly self-destructed the first time my life collapsed, so I was very young, most of my friends had just finished university, they were just starting lives, new relationships, and there was me with a 6-month-old baby, like going back to work full time, my mortgage doubled, and I just blamed myself for everything. So I completely self-destructed, and at one point I wasn't eating properly. I was just convinced I was fat and ugly and worthless, and just I wouldn't speak to anyone because I was so petrified that what if they took my son away from me, if they thought that I wasn't a capable mother. So it was like I just put these blinkers on and threw myself into work, just doing whatever I could to pay our bills, But in between that, I really hated myself behind the scenes. So I think because I'd lost so much, but what I was really scared of was losing myself again. So the third time I was just like, I'm not going to lose myself this time. I might have lost all of these physical things, but actually I am not going to lose myself. So yeah, the meditation was massive. And it was like I visualized like having a toolbox. And when I'm in a crisis or when things aren't going to plan, I'm like, okay, so what's in my toolbox? What can I do? Rather than what can't I do or what's out of my control. So meditation is one of those things, or reading a positive book is another one.
When did that concept sort of kick in, this concept of having a sort of a mental toolbox?
It was the third time. So when my life collapsed for the third time, it was just that decision that I'm going to do whatever it takes. And in an ideal world, I would have loved to have packed a suitcase, gone to the Bahamas for 2 weeks and just, like shut everyone out. But that was not an option. So it was like, what can I do? I could buy myself fresh flowers. I could eat properly instead of getting takeaways. I chose not to drink alcohol. Like that would have been really easy, just to drink a bottle of wine every night. But I chose to go to bed at a good time. I chose not to drink alcohol. I booked myself a massage for the first time in about 3 years. When I was driving my children to school, we would play positive and happy songs in the car and just sing. It was literally these really little changes, but a commitment that I would do that every day, not just once a month if I fancied it. It was a commitment to myself to really take responsibility for my own emotional well-being.
That's really, I mean, that is really impressive. I mean, if there is any, mums or single mums, obviously, that are having any hardship, you can completely, I mean, I can completely understand that you would be really reactive and you would be doing what you said, like trying to just make ends meet any way that you could. And you would be reactive in terms of maybe not eating the right foods or drinking alcohol just to kind of sort of numb the pain of going on. But how was it? How do you feel like you managed to sort of pluck up the courage to actually take the time to work on yourself, on your own sort of personal development, whether it be mindset tools or meditation? Where does that come from?
I think there's two different there's two answers to that. So the first is the fear of not wanting to go back to the life that I lived. So I did not want to be the girl that stood in front of a mirror and was convinced that she was fat and ugly and worthless, when in reality she was actually a size 8. And I say she, I mean me, but it's almost like that's a different person now. So I did not want to go back into that dark cloud of hating myself, losing myself, believing that I was worthless and I didn't really matter in this world. So it was that fear that drove me. But then it was also the hope of being the best that I could be and making a difference to other people, but also being a role model to my children. Now, believe me, in that moment, I did not feel like a role model to my children, having to sit them down and saying, you're never going to see your stepdad again. We are now faced with moving house and I don't have any money at the moment, but I need you to trust me that we are going to find somewhere and we're going to be okay. I did not feel like a role model in that moment, but I still had the hope that I could be that to my children. But I could not be that role model if I was collapsed in a heap, drinking vodka, not being able to be there for them when they needed me. So there was those two different things that moved me forward to do whatever it took.
Sure. Okay, so we'll get to what happened next bit. I just want to, if you don't mind, backtrack a little bit, because there were a couple of key bits you missed out, which I think are really inspiring. So, firstly, for the listeners, like, me and Cassie go way back, and how we kind of first met was at a workplace, at a gym. And, the thing that inspires a lot of people to know your story is how you've gone from being like the receptionist or even the cleaner at the gym to talking in front of thousands of people on stage. So, you can share just maybe like a short version of how that happened, but also what I'm keen to know is how much of an effect did that have on your mindset to to build in the resilience that you had to deal with all of the other sort of personal issues going on in your life?
Okay, so yeah, I trained as a mortgage advisor, but the stress from that job had meant that I was crying on my way to work, waking up having nightmares, and hating the job despite loving my role, if that makes sense. Your readers, listeners might be able to relate to that. So it got to the point where I needed to make a decision between my mental health or my career because I was so stressed, and I chose my mental health. So this is when I applied for the job as the cleaner. And when I first applied for that job, I was like, this would be amazing. Like, how awesome would it be not to have that pressure on your shoulders, having your manager phone you every hour saying, what have you sold? What are you selling next? How much commission have you made? That would just be amazing to release that pressure. But when I actually pulled up into the car park of the hotel that I wanted to work at, I had a complete imposter syndrome moment of not thinking I was good enough to be that cleaner. And I nearly didn't go in for my job interview because I just thought, oh my goodness, all I've ever cleaned is my house. Like, you idiot, what were you thinking when you applied for this? Why would they want to employ you? There's probably all these professional cleaners turning up that know cleaning products and you don't know anything. So that was one of my lowest moments, not thinking I was good enough to be the cleaner. But spoiler alert, I got the job. And that's when me and Matt met. I was wiping the sweat off the treadmills that he was training his clients on. But I loved it. I absolutely loved that role. And I worked there for 5 years, and it gave me just a break in my head that I needed just to be a good mum for a little while, and not be constantly stressed out with work. But that came to an end when there was a restructure, and I took redundancy. And this was then Matt then introduced me to the world of network marketing. And I'd never heard of network marketing, but I remember you said to me, oh, Cassie, you'd love this because you can work around your kids and work. And I was like, oh my goodness, does that even exist? So that was when I embraced the world of network marketing, and I loved the personal development. And like I said, I enjoyed my job as a cleaner, but I felt like I'd gone a bit stale because I hadn't really been working on myself. So I loved all of the personal development, going on the trainings, and it didn't go unnoticed. So I was presented with opportunities and just jumped at this opportunity. It wasn't like I was stepping out of my comfort zone. I was bungee jumping out of my comfort zone. And when I had the opportunity to go and speak at a cage fighting club, sharing with them about how the products can benefit the cage fighters. For those of you who are listening to this, if you can't see me, like, I don't look like a cage fighter. I'm not a cage fighter. I only run if the ice cream man is pulling out of the street. Like, I'm not a I'm not defined as a fitness person. However, I had gone on all the training, so I knew that this could help. I knew the products inside out. So I went for this opportunity to go.
Wait. So how do you go from feeling like you've got the limiting beliefs to do some cleaning, to having the positive attitude to go into a cage fighting club and talk to a group of grizzly men about how does that happen in the space of a year or so?
Again, I think it was the hope.
Personal development.
Yeah, it was a personal development combined with hope. So right. When I saw this opportunity of, like, you can build a business around your children whilst helping other people, I was like, wow, that is incredible. And in the meantime, I was starting to read personal development books. I was listening to the audiobooks. I was meeting up with motivational people. And again, it was this wanting to be a role model to my children. So how awesome if I could, build a life for them whilst being the best that I can be, whilst helping other people. It ticked all of those boxes. So I just thought I would be selfish not to embrace those opportunities. So when I had a random conversation with a friend and he was like, my friend has opened this new gym. He would love the products. Do you want to go and speak to him? I was never going to say no, never. It didn't even cross my mind. So I was like, yes. And then he told me it was a cage fighting opportunity. So in my head, I'm going, holy bleep, like, what have you just done? And then the other little voice is going, you're going to go for this. You know those products. You've been on the training. You can help them. What have you got to lose? Go for it. And Of course, I'm not going to lie. That evening, I remember writing on the table, "Gone to blood, sweat, and tears." That was the, like, that was the name of the gym, and I was like, what are you doing?" And there was me in my business dress with my heels on, turning up at this cage fighting gym. And I remember the guy was like, "Yeah, go upstairs. They're just finishing off a training." And I could hear all this like huffing and puffing and grunting. Walked up the stairs and there was like 20 half naked men with these big sticks in their hands. And I was like, okay. But it's just like, I've just got this drive, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, just do it. I was there for a reason. I knew how the products could help them. Just because I wasn't a cage fighter didn't mean that I couldn't help. So it was this story that kind of spread around the company, the network marketing company, about this girl that just joined the company, and she was effectively training cage fighters on the product. So
Yeah.
this story it inspired the leaders in the company, because I was quite new to the company, so I was embracing these opportunities. But B, I'd been on all the trainings and they saw that as good, that I had learned the product so quickly. So that is when I was given the opportunity. I had a phone call on a Saturday morning and said, "Hey, Cassie, do you want to speak at the National Training Day? There's going to be about 1,000 people there. We want you to share your story about the cage fighters. Do you want to do it?" And the voice that came out of my head said, out of my mouth said yes. And the voice in my head again is going, "Holy bleep, what the F are you doing?" So it, just because I embrace these opportunities doesn't mean to say that I don't feel the fear. I always get scared. Like walking across that stage in front of 1,000 people, that was the third time I'd spoken in public, pretty much.
Wow.
I hadn't been on a professional training speaking course.
What time frame was it, Cassie's, from like leaving the gym where you were doing the cleaning to talking on stage to 1,000?
12 months. I think it was about 10 months. I think
Wow.
it was 10 months.
Yeah. But this is why I wanted to get you on, just to kind of show people what is possible. But this is another reason why I started the podcast, because you kind of, your story is just a great advert for personal development in general. I think there's this belief that, you are who you are and that's just the way it is. But, it's called personal development, not because it's woo-woo, because you can develop yourself. It's not, so okay, great. I mean, if you don't mind, like, so going back to what happened next. So, you were just getting yourself together after the third, I'll let you continue the story better than I can do.
At that point when my third relationship collapsed, my business was not making any money, and I'd actually applied for a job as a carer, and they'd offered me the job on the spot. And there's nothing wrong with being a carer. I have full respect for carers, but my heart was breaking and just thinking, this is not your purpose in life. And thankfully, like, some piece of work came in. I can't remember what it was, but there was something, and I was like, okay, I've got like 1 month, then I can hold on for 1 more month. And as soon as me and my children moved into our new house, it was like this fire in my belly refused to go out, and it annoyed me, because I was like, it's going to be so much easier to give up. It'd be so much easier to give up, not to fight this. But that's when I ended up at seeing a counsellor, because everyone thought I was having a breakdown because they thought I was coping too well. So they were like, surely you're putting on a front, surely you're putting on a brave face, like, it's okay if you're breaking. I was like, but I'm not. But then I was questioning myself, and I was like, but am I? I don't know. So I went to see a counsellor for the first time in my life, and I poured everything out to him and just thought, well, you can decide, like, just tell me. If I am and I need help, I'll accept the help. But he stunned me into silence by at the end of our session saying, this should have taken you up to 2 years to reach a point of acceptance and to come to terms with everything that you've been through, but you've done this in 6 weeks yourself. What have you done? And as you know, I like to speak, but at that moment, like, I didn't have any words. I was like, so I'm okay then? And he was like, you're not just okay. He was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Like, and then that was what made me analyze in my head, well, what have I done? And I realized it was all this combination of making the decision look into the future, having hope, taking the small steps on a daily basis. So that then gave me the fire in the belly to think, I need to share this with other people. I can't keep this to myself, because lots of people might be having a relationship breakdown or a redundancy or a grief bereavement in their family. You need to know how to get your head back on track, to get your life back on track. So that was the point where I knew I needed to.
I love that. That's great. I love that quote. We'll get that quote out there, Cassie. That'll be a Cassie Farren quote.
But this is exactly what I did. That's, you get your head back on track and then you get your life back on track. And I was living proof of that, because that is what inspired me to then publish my second book. So we did miss out a part that I published my first book about my life story, called The Girl Who Refused to Quit. But then I actually felt like burning that book when the third relationship broke down, because I was like, you idiot, you know, you've ended this book by saying my life is now getting back on track and I've met this amazing man and everything's perfect. And then I was like, you idiot, like it's gone, you know, it's collapsed again. So I'd gone from hating myself, hating my business, hating my book, feeling like a failure, to having this fire in my belly to like, no, this is not the end. So that's when I extended the book and I wrote an extra 2 chapters saying about, you know, this is where I'm at now and this is what's happening. I'm not at my happy ever after, but I'm not giving up. And then based on what happened with the counsellor, I was then inspired to write my second book that's called Rule Your World, which does exactly what we've said. It shared the simple steps I took to get my head back on track, to get my life back on track. And I guess the rest is kind of history. I've published my 6th book
Amazing.
in September, and that was just for, so that when this happened was 2016. So that within the space of 4 years, I've published 5 books. I've set up a publishing company. I'm now working as a ghostwriter, mentoring other authors to share their life stories. Never been happier, actually. Like we said at the start, there are still big challenges going on in my life, but I've actually never felt happier and more content within myself now, and it's just 4 years after. So
it sounds like one of the pivotal moments was when you were thinking about taking this carer job on, but you sort of almost found, I don't know if purpose is the right word, but you found more like the calling type thing, which is the writing. Like that seemed to be the thing that clicked, right?
Yeah, it was a conversation I was having with somebody, and they didn't know that much about my business, because at the point I was considering not having a business. So I kind of I didn't even want to talk about it. I was ashamed of myself that I'd set this business up, and then I was like, well, I can't do it anymore. Like it looked like it was going to have to all shut. But I can't remember what she said, but she asked me something about my business, and I just kind of told her with such passion, and she was like, you absolutely just lit up as you told me that. She's like, something within you comes to life when you talk about that. And I said, I love it. I said, I don't want to stop, you know, writing my book and helping other people and speaking at events. I was like, that is what lights up my heart and my soul. And she was like, well, you've got to do that then. And I was like, but how? Like, how? And I guess that's the golden question, you know, how? And I cannot sit here and say that the last 4 years have been easy. Like it was only 1 year ago that I stopped doing freelance work. And at one point I was working for you, Matt, wasn't I? So you know that this has not been easy. It wasn't just like I moved into my new house and my profit just went through the roof and everything's been amazing.
I think there's this idea that with business, you know, with business people, and you know, as soon as you start a business, you just start raking it in. And you know, if you've never owned a business, people don't realize just how much work goes into building one. And but I think you mentioned like a really important thing, which was, you know, you'd obviously made that decision. You'd found the thing which was writing, and I think that is such an important thing for so many people, is that can then give you the motivation. Like people always saying that they haven't got the motivation, but you were clearly searching for that thing that was going to inspire you, and that's the key, isn't it? For like, because the reason why I wanted to have you on is because it's obviously right now there's so many people that I'm talking to, and you know, having a real tough time mentally, relationships breaking down, redundancies. And I think so it's such an important thing to have something to be inspired about. And actually I just on this topic, I just started like reading a book on resilience. So it's the science of mastering life's greatest challenges. It's written by 2 psychologists, and in the book they've got 10 things that resilient people have in common. And I was like reading these, I was like, tick Cassie, tick Cassie. So number 1 is be optimistic. So yes, looking on the bright side keeps you going, but what's more interesting is they're not talking about delusional rose-colored glasses here. Truly resilient people who need to survive the harshest situations still accomplish their goals. So optimism, like what I wanted to get out of this episode is some ingredients, some like key ingredients. How you always, even like after I know what you're going through at the moment, you always manage to stay optimistic. So how do people do that?
In a practical sense, like practical things that you can do, I think 1, like making that decision that you can either give up or you can get up. Like what are you going to do? So that's like the really simple thing. Just make that decision, because no one's going to drag you into your future. Like no one actually cares. Like if I can be completely blunt, nobody cares if you fulfill your purpose in this life. Not really. And I've learned that like you are on your own pretty much. You're going to have people on your journey that will support you and will be there for you. But when it comes down to it, this is your decision. This is your life. So make that decision. Are you going to give up or are you going to get up? And
Okay.
if your decision is I'm going to get up, then your next step, I believe, is to clear your head, because at any given moment, we all have a lot of crap in our heads of different things. And that can come from people, situations, so many different things. But if you are going to make that decision to move forward, you can't do that unless you have space in your head.
Yeah.
So clear your head.
And a lot of people don't realize how little space they have in their head.
Absolutely.
Until they have space in their head.
Exactly. So I can list you a few things that I do, and people might think, well, I'm not doing that. But then do you want a clear head or don't you? So again, it comes down to decisions. So since I moved into this house, I've not owned a television. So I've not had a television for 4.5 years. I don't read the papers. During lockdown and with what's going on with COVID, I was checking in about, well, I don't know, once a week or something, obviously just to know what's going on. But as a rule, I don't read the papers. Like if I need to find something out, the news will find you, believe me.
Yeah.
I don't scroll endlessly and aimlessly through my social media feed. I'm a member of certain groups and I go on there to look at those groups, but I don't just scroll for hours and hours and hours on social media. I endeavour to go to bed by 10:30 every night so that I'm getting good sleep. I spend a lot of time in nature, just going for walks and clearing my head in that way. And as we mentioned at the start, meditation is a really big thing for me. So I do meditate every day, not just once a month when I feel overwhelmed. I meditate once a day. So there's I think 6 I listed there. 6 things that you can do. And people might think, oh, well, I like watching the television every night for 3 hours. That helps me to relax. But you, like you said, you probably don't realize the negative implications of that and absorbing like negativity from other people.
I mean, we do have a TV, and I've been, and I hands up, I have to, it has to be, it's a conscious effort to not watch the news and stuff, because I have like conflicts with this, because I'm quite into world events and quite into just like that sort of thing, but at the same time, that the media does want you to be addicted to them, so that they will constantly just give you the negativity bias, and that you have to be really aware of that. But I think just for people listening, just even if you just do a time inventory, like where have you, how are you spending your time, if your life isn't in a place where you want it to be, because it's the best investment you can make, right? What are you doing with your time? How much time are you spending working on yourself? compared to, you know, consumerism of media, of whatever, you know. And you might, a bit like when people do food diaries for me, and they write down what they're eating. They're like, wow, I didn't realize I was eating so many calories, or I didn't realize I was eating so much crap. Maybe I do need to make a change. And sometimes that inventory, just getting it down on paper is all it takes really, just to make some progress.
Definitely. And something that people say to me, like, how on earth have you found the time to write 6 books? Or how do you find the time to meditate? How do you find the time to go for a walk, etc.? You will never, ever find that time. No one's ever going to knock at your front door and say, hey, Matt, I've brought you an extra hour in your day. Here you go. You have to make that time by sacrificing something else in your day. So for me, the simplest thing to sacrifice is television or social media. So I endeavor, it doesn't always work, but I endeavor to be logged off social media by 7 o'clock every night. Now, if you can't do that and you're panicking, then you're probably addicted to social media. That's like the simple answer. If you're panicking that you can't check in every half an hour. But even I have a alarm on my phone that you can set through Facebook, and it tells me when I've been on there for 1 hour. And bearing in mind, all of my business is online, so I'm kind of allowed to be on Facebook because I run groups and I'm running programs that are on. But I'm not normally on social media for more than an hour a day, and then I'm logged off by 7 o'clock on a weekend. Occasionally I'll log on because I'm in writers groups or like other groups that I want to be part of. But I don't as a whole go on social media over the weekend. I have a break from it then. So it's just these little tweaks.
I think it's one of those, probably the thing I say the most often, more than anything, is to all of our, you know, people that we coach, is it's only a problem if it's a problem. And it's like, you know, if you're having to have a drink because you have to, if you're telling yourself, oh, I've got to I need a drink, I've had such a stressful day, or if you're having a coffee because you need the coffee to give you the energy because you've had a bad sleep, or if you're spending so much time on social media that it's causing issues, that, you know, knowing when it's become a problem, that really is the key. But that only comes through self-awareness, and the self-awareness only comes through, you know, some form of practice, whether it's some meditation, some journaling, some time coaching to work on yourself. I just want to quickly go onto a couple of the more of these, because these made a note of these 10 things. So the next one was facing your fears. So neuroscience says there's only one real way to deal with fear. You need to face it head on. This is what the most resilient people do. So I mean, you've already shared like how you've done that. You know, is there anything you'd like to add to the importance of facing your fears? Has that been a big one for you?
Massive. And I think if people had known me in school, like, no one would recognize me. Like, I was never the confident, popular girl. I was just the little Miss Average that, you know, blended into the background. And even like when I was in my 20s and like bringing up my son on my own, I don't even recognize myself. I look at pictures and I'm like, oh my goodness. So how did I get from that girl to the girl that will confidently, you know, go and speak at Health Education England, or, you know, speaking on a stage in front of 1,000 people, or put myself forward for business opportunities? Like, how did that happen? And the answer is because I throw myself out of my comfort zone at any given opportunity. Because I think if you don't take that opportunity, then you're going to live with regret, and that will be given to somebody else. So again, you can make that decision. Do I want to grow as a person, or do I want to stagnate? And the only way you will grow is by throwing yourself out of your comfort zone. But by doing that, the reward that you get is the confidence.
How do you deal with the monkey brain when the monkey brain says, Cassie, you can't do this, you're not good enough?
Yeah, so that still happens, and I speak out loud to myself quite a lot. And I didn't realize this. I've actually got quite a funny video of me trying to make a video, and it took me 60 attempts to make this video because I just could not get my words out. And I've got a video that's got outtakes of me swearing at myself, but I'm actually having a dialogue with myself, and I'm going, I can't do it. I'm going, you can do it. Every time I watch it, I laugh because I didn't realize until that point how much I speak to myself and how much I actually answer myself. But if I'm not going to be that positive voice to my head, who else is? Like, no,
Yeah.
you know, like I've, without playing the victim mode, but, you know, I've pretty much brought my kids up on my own. You know, I don't have anyone to rely on. No one's there for me 100%, but why should they be? Why should they be? So I will be my own best friend. I will be my biggest cheerleader in business and in my personal life, because why would I put that responsibility onto someone else? So I still have doubts. Like every time I go to, like, you know, publish a book, like my fingers still like hovering over the key going, oh my God, you know, what are people gonna think? I still get nervous, I still get apprehensive, but it never ever stops me doing anything. Because again, I'm looking to the future about how this can move me forward, how it can help other people. And I think having a focus on making a difference to others really helps. It's never about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's a
about
big one,
them.
is having a bigger, it has to be bigger than yourself, doesn't
Yeah,
it? Like when you want to improve yourself, it can sound like, when you say that to someone, like personal development, self-improvement, it sounds like it's quite selfish, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a bigger picture for why you want to improve yourself. I think that's really
absolutely.
important.
I put a spin on that and say it's selfish not to do it, because how can I be the best mum that I want to be if I'm not valuing myself and looking after myself? How can I be the best daughter to support my parents if I'm not valuing myself or believing in myself? Like, how can I be the best business owner to serve my clients if I am crumpled up in a heap, crying my eyes out under a duvet with a bottle of wine? So I actually think it's selfish not to look after yourself. You have to put yourself at the top of that pyramid, and then that positivity will ripple down to other people in your life. And that does not mean that you have to be like Little Miss Happy Pants, like jumping around, dancing, you know, sprinkling unicorn glitter out into the world. And, you know, like, you don't have to be that person. It's about being real. But no matter what is happening in your life, you have to take responsibility for your own emotional well-being and constantly be working to improve that.
So number 3 on this list of 10 is probably like a good one to stem from that. So number 3 is have a moral compass. So the emotionally resilient people that Southwick and Charney studied all had a strong sense of what was right and wrong. Despite being in situations that could threaten their lives, they always thought about others, not just themselves. So it's pretty much just what we were saying. I think, and that's definitely something that I've always noticed with you. You're definitely very, you know what your morals are, and you're very strong on those. And I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm constantly thinking about how I can help other people. And at times like the first Christmas that I was on my own, without my children, I drove to London and volunteered at a homeless centre, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Now, a lot of people thought I'd lost my mind. Well, why aren't you with your children? Like, why are you driving to London? And all, you know, all these other questions. But I had a choice. I could either sit and watch Bridget Jones, drinking wine, crying my eyes out, feeling sorry for myself, or I could do something that was going to help and make a difference to other people. And even on Christmas Day, a guy that was volunteering at the same centre, his motorbike broke down in Luton. And very long story short, I offered to go and pick him up because I was going to be passing Luton on Christmas Day. Now, I know that that's not in the health and safety manual of a female picking up a random man and driving him into London, but it was Christmas Day and I wanted to help. So whether it's Christmas Day, like quite a big thing like that, or whether I'm at Wicksteed Park and I see like an elderly man on a bench, like I will smile and I will say hello. And if he wants to start speaking to, I'll sit and have a chat with the random man. You know, we're taught not to speak to strangers, but I do it a lot. Like I quite often just smile, it's a beautiful day today. And then they'll start telling me that they used to visit the park with their family. And, you know, I quite often just speak to people. So it doesn't have to be like this big newsworthy thing, like I've donated £1 million to charity, but I'm constantly thinking about other people. Like I asked my neighbour when we went into lockdown, she's like an elderly woman. I said, I'm going to the shop, do you need me to get you anything? She asked me to get her some bread, but instead of just getting bread, I put it together a little hamper with some soap and some cookies, and I just put it in a basket. It didn't cost me a lot of money, but she opened the door and she cried because she knew she wasn't going to be seeing her family for the next few months. And the fact that someone had just taken the time to think about her, that meant the world
Yeah,
to her. And I
I think
didn't
it's a great
immediately
thing.
I didn't go and splash that all over Facebook. I'm just sharing it now as an example. But this is, no matter what is going on in my life, I'm still thinking of others and how I can help other people.
That's amazing. Well, number 4 we've kind of covered, which was one of the top 10 most common traits of resilient people was to practice spirituality. Can't say that very well. This was the number 1 thing that researchers found when studying people who had overcome tragedy. So there's a good example of that. Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, so I discovered Reiki when my life had collapsed for the first time, and I didn't know what Reiki was, but my friend said to me, oh, it's good if you're stressed, so maybe you should go. That's all I knew. And then I was having this Reiki treatment. So the practitioner like holds their hands like above your body, and I was feeling all this heat, and I was like, what on earth is that? And then before I knew it, I had tears coming out of my eyes, and I was like, are they my tears? What's going on? And that to me, like, again, opened up a whole new intrigue of the body and the mind connection. And as a result of that session and me feeling so much better, again, like fast forward 10 years, I've actually become a Reiki master now. So I went on to learn more about Reiki, read a book on it. I worked at a cancer charity, as you know, like, and supported cancer patients. The day that I went to London, I was doing Reiki on the homeless people. So for me, I think that has been a massive part of my journey, like opening my mind to the bigger picture of life and healing from the inside out, if that makes sense. So that combined with the practical steps has helped me. And some people don't fully understand it, and I don't fully understand it completely, but you don't have to. You just have to be open-minded.
Yeah, open-mindedness is I think that's a character trait that a lot of the people I've interviewed on this podcast seem to have in abundance. Is sometimes you can't have a reason for everything. I mean, science just doesn't move that quick. That there are many, even acupuncture and certain things that which have been proven now, but many years ago were classed as woo-woo, and many practices. It takes many years until science can actually put together reason for why they work. But the key is knowing, does it work? We don't need to have an explanation for everything.
Yeah, no one can explain Wi-Fi, can they? It's like, what is Wi-Fi? And no one's ever seen Wi-Fi. Like, people say, well, how can you prove Reiki? Because you can't see it. Well, I can't see Wi-Fi, but I know now that I'm connected to you because of Wi-Fi. And it's the same with the electricity that's in my house. It just appears, and it's just energy. And
we could go right down the rabbit hole of energy, and that'll be another podcast. But so number 5 is get social support. So even if you're not part of a religion or community, friends and loved ones are key when life gets hard. Our brains need social support to function optimally, and connection with others releases oxytocin, which calms your mind and reduces stress. There's a lot more on that as well, but I mean, I think social support, and this is why at the moment I think so many people are finding life tough, because they're not having that connection so much with people, and that close connection. Even we're having to have, even if we are meeting people in person, it's at a distance. And I think it's worth kind of noting that, and just so that when we do get back to some sort of normality, that we can restore that, because I think connection's just so important.
Definitely. I would also add to that I think I'm guilty of in the past, like, isolating myself. Like, if I've had a bad experience and you think, well, I don't want to speak to anyone, because it's easier not to. So you kind of shut off, or if anyone says, are you okay? You just go, yeah. So actually, I think that social support in admitting that things aren't okay, that doesn't mean to say that everyone's going to run away and be like, oh my goodness, you're such a burden, like, you're always moaning. Like, that doesn't mean that you're going to burden that person, but actually just to be honest, like, if you bump into your friend in the supermarket and they say, how are you? It's okay to say, do you know what, things aren't great at the moment, but I'm getting through each day the best I can. I'm as okay as I can be. You don't have to go into everything, but it's okay to be honest with your social network, and you don't have to put on that mask all the time and you're okay if you're not.
I think guys are the worst for that as well, which is why, unfortunately, suicide rates in men is just way too high. I think, reach out if you're struggling. Don't don't bottle it up. I think there's this ego thing in a lot of guys that we've got to be strong and we've got to be the men and we've got to, just crack on, and life can be hard, and yeah, sometimes that's true, but then also there's no issue in just talking either.
Yeah, and I think what I didn't realize is that by being vulnerable and speaking openly, like really openly and honestly about how I felt, you give others permission to do the same. So you open up to them, and then they'll say, oh, well, I've actually been having quite a hard time because of this, and they might not have told you that if you hadn't have done that. So it can like open a wave of honesty between the people that you're close to, and it doesn't mean that you're going to stay there and wallow in self-pity, but
yeah, I've definitely learned that. Like, I think I've learned that vulnerability is probably one of the keyest the most key ingredients to being courageous. It can be courageous to be vulnerable, because it can be one of the hardest things to do, because you don't want to show any weakness, do you? Particularly in as a business owner, or even as a parent. Sometimes you want to show up, put on a brave face, when the truth is things aren't always as hunky-dory, which is again, not to talk it down too much, but social media can put a big, we've talked about this on a podcast before, a slant on society, and everyone having their highlight reel, whereas the truth of the matter is that it really is just a highlight reel most of the time.
100%. Yeah.
So we've got 7 is maintain physical fitness. So again and again, Southwick and Charney saw that the most resilient people had good exercise habits, and that they kept their bodies in good shape as well as their minds. So the stress of exercise helps us adapt to the stress we feel when life challenges us. This is definitely one for, like, I'm a massive believer in. Like, if you're listening to this and you're feeling stressed right now, get out. Even if you just go for a walk, it doesn't, I think when you say the word exercise, people think about some sort of like spinning class or circuit class in a gym, or being hammered by a personal trainer like me. But just get out, like you said, like getting out for a walk in nature. There's nothing, to some extent, as powerful as that.
Definitely. Get your wellies on. I go and stand in a stream sometimes. I just put my wellies on, I'll go and stand in a stream. Like, it's so simple, but it's really peaceful and just helps you just to chill. So
yeah,
get some wellies.
I think nature is absolutely key. Keeping your brain strong was number 8, Cassie. So know that little brain game on your phone isn't what we're talking about. Resilient people are very often lifelong learners. They keep growing their mind, learning to learn, and adapting to new information about the world. In our experience, resilient people tend to be lifelong learners, continually seeking opportunities to become more mentally fit. Yeah, I mean, there's so much you could say about that, right?
Definitely. Yeah. It's like I said, it's a lifelong journey. And I think that's important to point out, that you don't go from rock bottom to living your best life in one day or 1 week. Don't put that massive expectation on yourself that you have to feel amazing by the next day. But it's just very gradual, bit by bit, day by day, just trying to be a bit better than you were the day before, and not put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, and I'd also just add to that it was often a big divide between sort of your brain and then your body. But if you're feeding your body with good nutrition, if you're leading a quite low toxicity within the body, you're getting good sleep, and you're just doing the fundamental things like hydrating the body regularly, like we said, getting outside. Much of that will be the foundation of keeping your brain strong. So let's move on. So number 9 kind of like extends from that. So being cognitively flexible. So all of us have one way we typically cope with difficulty, but what sets apart extremely resilient people is that they use a number of ways to deal with stressful situations. people who are resilient tend to be flexible in the way that they think about challenges and how they react emotionally to stress. But have you got any tips and tricks, Cassie, on stress management? Is there anything particularly that always tends to work for you?
I'd say I have my toolbox, and I guess it depends on what the challenge is and what's going on is what tool I have. But something, going back to clearing your head, have you ever like had a really bad, like big challenge, and there's nothing that anyone can actually do about the challenge, like it is what it is, but you've just told someone, you've just got it out in the open, and then you're like, oh, I feel a bit better now just for talking about it. So what I sometimes do, I sometimes just write it out. And when I say write, I'm not thinking like professionally, like I not checking for spelling or anything like that, but it's almost just getting it out of your head. Like, so you might need to write a letter to somebody, or it might just be a situation that you just need to get out of your head, but you don't want to speak to anyone about it. So you can, sometimes I do it in pencil, so then I can't even read back what I'm writing, and there'll be swear words and expletives, and it's, no one's ever going to read it. But I just feel better for writing it. And something else I've done a couple of times when I say about speaking to myself, I've actually made a video of myself speaking. I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to share this with anyone, but I just need to get this out of my head. This has just happened and I'm feeling quite sad. I feel a bit sad. I'm silly sharing this, but I've done it and it helps. So I've been sat in my car, like crying my eyes out, and just made a video about this is what's just happened, because I just need to get it out of my head. And that's it. I've just recorded it. I've never shared it with anyone. It's just, that's another way to get it out of your head, or another way to speak to someone, and actually to say to the person that you're speaking to, I'm not looking for any answers here. I don't expect you to have the solutions, but I just need to share this with someone.
I think you can't underestimate it. It sounds, this is the thing with a lot of most powerful techniques for self-improvement, is that the problem with a lot of them is they sound so simple and obvious that it's almost like people value them less. You know, most of the things, most of the best strategies are generally free as well. Like you don't need to pay anyone just to write something down or to talk to someone about something. You don't need to pay to drink some water or to go to sleep earlier. You know, most of these things don't cost money.
And I think sometimes that can be a positive and a negative, because it's like we're wanting someone else to do something for us, or, well, I can't go to that holiday to the Bahamas, so therefore I'm going to sit and moan. No, but I can put my wellies on, I can walk around Wicksteed Park Lake, I can buy myself a hot chocolate from the co-op on the way there, and I can just do these little things.
Why do you think that is? Do you think maybe like we've been so conditioned for external, like materialistic things to solve our problems that we forget the basics?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's scary to have that responsibility that the answers that you're looking for are within yourself. But then I think let's put a spin on that and actually say, well, if I've not got myself into this mess, because it might not be circumstances, it might be circumstances beyond your control, but if my head has become a mess due to what's going on in my life, then I can get my head out of this mess. So I see it as empowering that we have got that control. But like anything, it takes courage, it takes consistency to do that. It's not just going to happen overnight, like starting a new fitness routine. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. You have got to be patient with yourself, you have got to be consistent. But if you're taking these little steps on a daily basis, you will start to feel better. And if any other challenge does hit in your life, you will be able to get yourself out of that rut quicker by using your own toolbox.
And I mean, one of my favorite tools, if we're going back to like strategies, is journaling, like you said. And there's a journal called I think it's called The Morning Pages. That's it, by Julia Cameron. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No.
But I like the way that she talks about it. She talks about the morning pages as I think it's like wiping the windscreen wipers of your mind. So the idea is, in the morning, you open the journal. It's a beautiful journal, great Christmas gift, by the way, and you just write one full page. All right, one full page of just complete whatever comes out. You don't judge it. You don't have to like be a writer. You just write what's on your mind. And the idea is like, just to, when you when you sort of get in your car and you just wipe away the rain so you can see. The idea is before you start your day is be able to just wipe away all of those thoughts, all those negativities, all of those, it's not going to solve the problem, but it's going to help you clear your mind so that you can start working on overcoming the problem.
I love that. Love that concept.
So the last one, and we can finish up, and we've kind of covered this, but I think it's a really good one to finish on, is at the top 10 things that they found the most resilient people have in common. Number 10 was find meaning in what you do. So resilient people don't have jobs, they have callings, they have a mission and a purpose in life that gives meaning to the things they do. So when times are hard, they feel a greater purpose is behind them, pushing them forward. What you got to say to that one, Cassie? Do you agree with that?
Okay, yeah. So like I said, I was a mortgage advisor, then a cleaner. Like, I didn't really feel like I had a purpose. It wasn't until I shared my life story and I was able to look back and reflect on that gave my life purpose. So what I would say is, if you're looking back on your life and feeling like a failure or feeling like you've made mistakes or the wrong choices, find out what you have learned from that. And again, it's not an overnight thing, but how have you changed? What are the insights that you have gained? And then is there some way that you can share this with other people? And I guess as a writer, this is what I do. I'm sharing real life stories. And what I've realized is that every time somebody shares their life story, it helps somebody else. They resonate with it, they relate to it, they feel like they're not alone. And again, it's not about providing answers. You don't have to be at your happy ever after to do this. You just have to share in an honest and vulnerable way that tells the truth of what you've been through. And what I found is that then gives your life purpose, because you've given your message meaning. You've given your life meaning by sharing your story, by sharing your message. So that's how I have done it. I'm sure there's many other
I think it can be over thought as well. I think sometimes the problem with the finding your purpose thing and finding your meaning is, it's almost like once you find that holy grail, then everything's okay. And I think that's probably the mistake people make, is not realizing that purpose can continually change as you go through your life, right? So it's not like if you'd found writing when you were 7 years old, things would have been different. Like, as we age, we have different passions, we have different things happen to us. So, whatever like what sparked your writing, that conversation with the lady who could see the energy and how you lit up. I think that's one of the key ingredients. Like, if you're listening to this thinking, well, I don't know what my purpose is, how do I know that? What energizes you, what inspires you, what kind of lights you up? Yeah. And that's a really good, I always think that's a really good start to finding some form of, whether you're starting like a business, or whether you just want to feel happy and you want to find a new hobby. What are the key things that kind of like light you up? And I think that's a great way to start.
Definitely. And also to think, because I think people make the excuse of not having enough time, not having enough money. But if you just pretend that isn't an issue and ask yourself, if time and money wasn't an object, what would I absolutely love to do? And that will give you a clue as to what it is. So it doesn't mean that you quit your job and become an artist tomorrow, but maybe you can start an arts course, or maybe you can start an online program learning art. So it's kind of that can give you a clue, and then it's just taking those small steps to light up your heart and your soul towards that.
Yeah, and what's the worst case scenario? Like, I love Richard Branson's quote on making decisions. Like, what's basically, he always looks at any new project or any new deal as, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst that can happen? What's the biggest downside? And I think often when you ask that question, you're like, the upside far outweighs the biggest downside.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the time people are concerned about, what will other people say? Will people judge me? But you have to remember that you are the only person living your life, and along your journey, some people are going to fall away. Not everyone will support your decisions, but as long as the people close to you do, so your whoever that is, it's going to be different for everyone. You know, if their opinion matters, then speak to them. If it doesn't, then it's okay. Like, you can make these decisions for you. It's your life. So
yeah, even if you're making decisions for yourself, if it gives you joy,
yeah.
you know, and happiness, then why wouldn't you? Is there anything like from your own, just to sort of finish things up, from your own writing, from your own books? Obviously, people will give the links to people so they can get a good insight properly, but from your own books, that of bits of advice that you give to people?
I think it's just, you know, do not allow your past to define your future, because I think so many people are like, yeah, but I didn't get any qualifications at school, or yeah, but, you know, they've got a yeah, but for everything. Like, just find a way or find an excuse. Like, that is, again, one of those just clear-cut statements of just deciding that you will find a way. If you want this, that you will find a way to do it. And if you feel yourself slipping back into having a pity party or slipping back into victim mode, again, ask yourself, am I going to give up? Am I going to get up? Will I find a way? Will I find an excuse? And it's constantly increasing that self-awareness in your head. Clear some space in your mind, and then take that first step, whatever that is. Even if it's getting out of bed and having a shower that day, or even if it's, you know, putting your wellies on and going for a 5-minute walk. Just do something. These little increments will massively help you, and just keep moving forward.
Let's talk business just to finish then. So with, you know, let's say someone's listened to this and they've been really inspired, and maybe they think about writing their own book. You know, what challenges, or what would your advice to come over any mindset blocks or challenges to actually say go and do it?
So I would say, excuse me, I would say to lead from your heart, because as soon as you start thinking about this, you will come up with every reason, like, who wants to read my story? I'm just me, I'm not a celebrity, etc., etc. So you will come up with all these excuses if you think about it with your head. But if you feel it with your heart, that is when it draws you towards making this happen no matter what. So the way that I do this is connecting with my ideal reader. So my ideal reader is the person I want to read this book, the person that's going to have a transformation, possibly changing their life, or even just giving them hope and knowing that they're not alone. So whenever I have a wobble, I constantly go back to making a difference to that one person, just that next person, just that next person, just that next person. And I've sat writing with tears streaming down my face and thinking, I can't do this, this is too hard. But then I just bring myself back into the moment. Yes, but your story has got the potential to make a difference to someone else's life. And I personally feel that if I don't honor that and I don't do it, then I'm being selfish. So again, take yourself out of the equation. It's not about you, it's about them and who you can help. So lead with your heart and have that passion of wanting to make a difference.
Fantastic. Well, I can't think of a better way to finish, to be honest, Cassie. Thanks so much. It's been amazing chatting. Where can people find out more about what you do and your books, and yeah, anything else you want to share, really?
So my website is cassandrafarren.com. All of my books are available on Amazon. So again, you can search my name on Amazon, but they are also listed on my website. So that's
Fantastic.
The easiest place to find me.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks again. You know, we'd love to have you on. I'd love to have you on another time. I'm sure there's other topics that we can discuss. You know, look after yourself during this next lockdown. Let's hope it's not too long. Let's hope they stick to the word and it's just a month. That's what I'm hoping for sure. So we can reopen our gyms again. I hope if you've been listening to this and enjoying this, I hope you've made some notes, and I hope you're going to take some action. You know, just remember that, you know, listen to podcast episodes like this is great because it's working on your mindset and personal development. But if you're not taking action, then it's a bit of a waste of time. So take action, you know, let me know how it goes. Join the Mastering You group, the Facebook group community, you know, connect with me, and yeah, continually work on yourself. Take care, guys. Okay, that's it, Cass.
You're good?
Yeah, that was